in honor of Parashat Zachor, Purim. And I've got a lot of requests. People miss me talk about reincarnation. Actually, the deepest part of the Torah is the Kabbalistic Sod, the secrets of the Torah. And I've become myself, I just bought like half a dozen books about reincarnation. Because so we know the two heroes of the story of Purim are Mordechai and Esther. Now we have to understand Mordechai was almost a perfect leader, fearless, absolutely selfless, altruistic, and of course the women. But we still have to know that all of us, Mashiach hasn't come, and this is obviously one of the biggest questions we always ask ourselves. So much sacrifice, so much October 7th have happened throughout the course of our history. Why isn't the Mashiach come? The answer is very simple. We still have a tikkun to do. So believe it or not, the greater you are, the more perfect your tikkun has to become. So we're going to explain a Gemara about Reish Lakish. Then we're going to understand that he was a reincarnation of Mordechai. So first of all, there's a few rabbis that their pages, almost on every single page of the thousands of pages of Talmud, they're constantly, it's almost impossible to learn a sugya, a Talmudic topic, without mentioning their name. Abaye and Rava, Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan, Rav Shmuel. So the Talmud in Bava Metzia, Talmud Bavli, Pedalit 84, explains who Reish Lakish was. It says he was the brother-in-law of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan, in the ancient times, had gone to bathe in the Jordan River, and he had a beautiful glowing skin. Reish Lakish, which was the head of the Jewish gangsters, saw that this beautiful white glowing skin from very far across the river is shining. So he thought it was a woman. He wanted to go, get him for himself. Lo and behold, he sees it's a man with a big beard. It's a rabbi baby. So Rabbi Yochanan saw, the Gemara says here, that this person has extraordinary energy, because he basically was able to leap from one side of the river, so he has a lot of potential. So Reish Lakish says, I thought from behind you were a woman. I see you're a man now. He says, your beauty is meant for women, Reish Lakish tells his future brother-in-law, and Chavrusa. They learned together till their death, by the way. They had a very, very intertwined life, which is kind of tragic in the end, but that's not for today. Anyways, Rabbi Yochanan says that Chelkach le'araisa. He says, yes, maybe perhaps my beauty is meant for women, because my skin is so glowing and so extraordinarily beautiful, but he says that your energy and potential would be best used for Torah. So the Gemara says here, Rabbi Yochanan makes him an offer he can't refuse. And he says, listen, if you do tshuva and not continue to be a Jewish mafia gangster, I'll give you my sister in marriage. Kind of like the story of Rabbi Akiva's wife, how Rabbi Akiva was Amaretz, right? It's one of these romantic. Reish Lakish.
What if she opposed?
Reish Lakish accepted. I guess she had such an outstanding and wise brother that she knew that he wouldn't mislead her. But anyways, so that's who Reish Lakish was. Now, there's another crazy, crazy story about Reish Lakish that is, I honestly learned this Gemara dozens of times. I never understood it until I learned ThiRAMA MIPANO, one of the biggest Kabbalists. He says that there's a Gemara that it said Reish Lakish, unfortunately, and most Rishonim, most commentators hold this was after he became a rabbi. He was so deathly poor, he didn't have food to feed his wife and kids. Somehow an idea came into his brain. Don't ask me how. This is a wacky, one of the weirdest things in the Talmud. This Talmud is Talmud Bavli Gittin Mem Zayin. Please look up this Gemara, because a few rabbis that I shared this with weren't familiar with this Gemara, but it's a really, one of the most difficult Gemaras to understand. The homiletic Agadita story parts of the Gemara to understand. It's page 47a. It says Reish Lakish saw that he was dying of hunger and didn't have his food to feed his wife and kids, he said, somehow through divine providence, idea came to himself. He said, I'll sell myself to cannibals, so they give me a lot of money. Then his wife and kids could live. Then I'll deal with them, because he was a very strong person. He was able to, like, basically in one stroke swim from one side of the Jordan River. At that time also wasn't like now. It was a raging, like, Mississippi type of major waterway. So he says that Reish Lakish he sold himself to cannibals, and they would give you one death wish. Before they would cook you and eat you, they said, like, your last wish in order, like even in death row, they give you any meal you want. So this is an ancient, they said, listen, before we cook you and eat you, what's your final wish? He says, he had this sack that looked like it was an empty sack, but it had a very, very sharp and special weapon inside. He said, my final wish is, let me tie you all up. I'll just give you one smack across the face, because I know you're going to eat me. And innocently then I'll open your tie and you could eat me. Very hard Gemara to understand how a rabbi would do such a thing. Anyways, it says that he did that. Then he smashed all their faces in, teeth in, he killed them all. He ran away with all the money, because the money actually belonged to him. And, I think the Gemara is mashma, they trusted him, he was a rabbi. They didn't know that he had this up their sleeve, right? He let them tie him, and, he looked like an innocent rabbi. And so the MIPANO says, this Gemara is almost impossible. What does not make any sense whatsoever. A rabbi that his name is almost every page of the most holy Reish Lakish would go and sell himself to cannibals. He says this was his destiny, part of his tikkun. Why? Because Reish Lakish is no other than Mordechai, ben Yair ben Kish. Now Mordechai, Kabbalistically, and if you look in the Medrash, did one miscalculation that wasn't so nice. He refused to bow to Haman. So like in the Clinton era, don't ask, don't tell. Who told Mordechai, somebody as dangerous, as powerful as Hitler? Haman is the original Hitler. Never forget that. He wanted to destroy and annihilate Yamach Shemo v'Zichro, every man, woman, and child internationally. Right? The first global Holocaust is Purim. That's why it's such a joyous day, because Hashem saved us from international annihilation. Right? Because the entire world was under the jurisdiction of the Iranian regime. Couldn't Mordechai just avoid the guy? You don't have to go and antagonize Haman and not bow down to him. So even Mordechai's colleague said, why are you doing this? You're playing with fire. You're playing with a nuclear bomb. This guy has nuclear power. He's the prime minister of the whole world. And if you look in the Malbim, Achashverosh was like a playboy type of king. He always wanted to have fun and other things. And, sexual parties. So, in the end of the day, halachically, it's right. Halachically, Mordechai, you're never allowed to bow down to an idol. Because Haman had made himself an idol and tried to put big idol around his neck. But in the end of the day, Mordechai had to be punished, had to make a tikkun. Because he scared the living daylights, not out of one Jew, but every Jew in the world thought that on the day of Purim, they would be what? Hasta la vista, their head chopped off. So since he potentially could have avoided Haman and not antagonized him to want him to make this terrible plan of killing all the international Jews of all the world, have a global Holocaust, he needed to be punished. That's why he grew up in his next reincarnation not from. That's why he was a gangster. Your neshama, if you read the Arizal and Shara Gilgulim, when the neshama of a tzaddik is captive in the body of a rasha, it's worse than Gehenna. This is such a... Because imagine, a tzaddik always wants to be learning Torah and doing holy and light. And now he's trapped in a place of darkness. Till his tikkun came, he met Rabbi Yochanan, like we said.
Yeah.
But it says in Kabbalah it was a divine thing that he should go sell himself. Logically, he would go sell himself to cannibals, especially a rabbi that's one of the biggest scholars of all time. Yeah. But it says, since potentially they could have killed him, first of all, you see that in the Megillah, it says Mordechai ben Shimi ben Kish. Reish Lakish is his nickname. His name is Reb Shimi ben Kish. So again, you see that it was already predicted that he would have to become reincarnated. In the Megillah, you see, Shimi ben Kish is his name. So and actually the gematria of standing in front of the king and not bowing down is 958, which is the same gematria as Reish Lakish. So not bowing down. So you see that in order for Reish Lakish to give a rectification and tikkun to his previous Gilgul, he had to go through this whole thing of being destitute, poor, and the fear of the Ludaim being able to potentially, something could have gone on there and he would have been eaten alive. Yeah. So the Rabbeinu Yonah says, sometimes you deserve to die, but Hashem will scare you to death. So you shouldn't curse Hashem. You should say Gamzu L'Tova, because if Hashem wants to be nice to you, sometimes that's what really happened. The Jews all, because they had done a lot of sins and went to the feast of Achashverosh and had done sexual sins there and done a lot of Avodah Zarah, they deserve to die. That's why Hashem, in His infinite kindness, so that's the way to understand the story of Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish is originally Mordechai. He had to become punished to be in the body of a Rasha, to potentially even be devoured by cannibals. That's why Hashem threw him into that situation. But again, by him being fearless and doing teshuvah, he did his tikkun. And I hope you could share this fascinating idea. And I just want to end that perhaps this makes sense. The Chazon Ish told his students on his deathbed, don't say how much great of a tzaddik I was, how much Torah I learned. The most important thing is say that I never harmed I never hurt anybody's feelings. So if you look in the Arizal, you see that in the end of the day, since he caused not only one, but an entire nation to be scared to death, he had to become reincarnated. Baruch Hashem, he did his tikkun through Reish Lakish, and you see the neshama is the same neshama only because you see that just like Mordechai was absolutely fearless, who in his right mind would go up to Hitler and not bow down to him if that's the international law, But you see that the same thing, Reish Lakish had the same fearlessness to go sell himself to cannibals. Yeah. So it's an interesting thing because the soul is the same. Our body is just like clothing. You understand? The personality in the soul is the same. So if sometimes Hashem throws you into crazy situations, don't give up. It's probably you have to fix something from you. It's all a test. Be fearless. Be full of emunah. Trust. Do the right thing. And you will go to the side of the light. Happy Purim.